Hey, what's up you guys? Today we are doing my April wrap up. So April was obviously the Ibbles Magical Readathon. I was doing the Magizoologist career and I completed the prompts, which was great. There was only 4 of them, but I have more books than that to talk about as well. So before we get started, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and without any further ado, let's get started. The first book that I read was The Word is World for Forest by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is a sci-fi book released in 1972, and it deals with themes of anti-colonialism and anti-militarism. There's also a big focus on the environment and the connection that we as a species have with the environment. So in this book, humans have invaded alien planet that they use for logging because Earth is like run out of wood, and they turn the planet's native alien people into slaves because they're naturally very docile. They don't have any genes for like fighting back or anything like that. They're very non-aggressive, so the humans are like, oh, they don't care, they like having a job, like they don't mind being slaves. They don't even call them slaves, they just call them workers, but obviously they are slaves. So after one of the natives' wives is killed, he teaches all of the other natives, like he has such like built up emotion and like anger that he learns how to be aggressive, and he teaches this to the other natives, and they launch an attack on the humans and have a revolution. Is that right? The way that the majority of the humans act in this book is so disgusting. They're all part of the army and they treat the natives so horribly. They don't even see them as like living things. It's really horrible, actually. I did love the environmental aspect of the book and all the messages about how interconnected like we are with nature and how all species have a role to play in the environment. That was really interesting. The alien species culture is very much in tune with the environment, and in their language, the world okay, so the word that means forest also means world, because without the forest there is no world. So that's the title of the book, and I really liked that. Also, all the anti-colonialism and like anti-military messages, they were all really good as well. They were really strong and were very emotional. They were very heartfelt. Like I said, the way the humans treat the native people is just disgusting. The opening paragraph of chapter 2 of this book was like my favourite my favourite paragraph I have ever read in a book. It was so good. I reread it like 4 times because I was like, this is so beautiful. It was basically just describing the forest, and all the imagery used was just like so gorgeous. It was so beautiful to read, and I highly recommend this book purely based on just that one paragraph alone, but also just the book as a whole. It was really impactful, and such really important messages, like messages that were important in 1972 and are just as important today. So definitely recommend this book completely, 100%. Stories by H.P. Lovecraft, and I was kind of disappointed in them. I'll put all of the names like here of the ones that I read because I'm not going to talk about them all individually. But the most famous story is obviously The Call of Cthulhu, and I was really excited to go into this. I was really looking forward to it. I was expecting like some huge like world-changing event to take place in this book. I thought it was going to be about like the destruction of the world, and it was really lame. It was so anticlimactic. Like Cthulhu didn't do anything. He scared like a ship of soldiers, not soldiers, like a ship of people, and like killed a couple of them. Like it was so anticlimactic. I was really disappointed in it. The shorter stories in general were more atmospheric, but the longer ones kept going to like more academic places. They really lose any creepy atmosphere that they have because they always tend up to go towards like being academic and trying to explain things through the eyes of like scientists or professors and stuff, and it just like isn't that interesting. It loses a lot of the atmosphere that they have. For example, the Dunwich Horror starts off really strong. It's really intriguing, and then they kind of switch to this academic viewpoint, I would say, and we spend too much time with a doctor who is trying to like explain things logically, and it just loses all of the momentum and attention. And then by the time we get back to kind of the events of what's going on, we've lost all that creepiness due to like the academic side, scientific side, and the slower middle section just kind of ruins the entire story. Like it starts off really strong and it ends kind of strong, but the middle section just kind of ruins the whole atmosphere. I did like the kind of reoccurring themes that show up throughout all of the stories, like for example the Necronomicon, I think that's how you pronounce it, that like reappears in like every other story, and I like that because it kind of builds up this like kind of bigger world with all these events happening in the same world. But at the same time, a lot of them just weren't that interesting because of the kind of scientific academic stuff that goes on within the stories. So I was actually really disappointed in this because I was really looking forward to trying some HP Lovecraft and I just didn't like them. Monday Begins on Saturday is a Russian sci-fi fantasy novel written by Boris and Arkady Strugatsky, and this is translated, I can't remember who translated it, sorry, but it's set in a fictional Russian town where there's a scientific research institute of sorcery and wizardry, and the book is split into 3 parts. So I really enjoyed part 1. It started off really strong. It was very nonsensical and it was giving me like major Alice's Adventures in Wonderland vibes, which is my favourite childhood book, so I was like really feeling it. And the main character, he like the way he was responding to everything was really interesting. He was taking everything really well and I was really enjoying it. However, we then go into part 2 and there's been a big time jump. So in part 1 he meets 2 men and they like talk about the institute and they're like, oh, you should come and work there. And then in part 2 we jump to him actually working there and it's implied he's been working there for a while. So the time jump isn't like that bad, but I just wish it'd been mentioned like how long it'd been. But anyway, it's not that big a deal. So lots of random characters just keep getting introduced and then leaving and introduced and leaving throughout this entire like part 2 of the book. And I was like, I don't know what the actual kind of focus is here of the story. I liked all the references to like the different magical creatures and items. We get a tour of the institute and I really liked that part. It was just really fascinating to see all the different kind of things that we know like from pop culture and just like mythological creatures and all that kind of stuff. But the actual plot was really lackluster. For me, I just didn't really think there was much of a focus. And again, like I said, part 1 was very nonsensical and part 2 and 3 was kind of nonsensical but like kind of more structured. So it was just kind of like this uneven middle ground that I wasn't really enjoying. There's a whole mystery as well about like a parrot who keeps reappearing every single day and it just wasn't interesting. They spend so much time talking about this parrot and like investigating this parrot and it just wasn't very interesting in my opinion. I kind of lost interest in the whole book within like the second half of part 2, but I just kept reading because it was for a prompt basically for the magical readathon. But yeah, I didn't love it, sadly. I was really excited for this as well. In my TBR I talked about how excited I was to try this and it started off strong and then just kind of disappointed me at the end. The next 3 books I read were The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, Elixir by Hilary Duff, and Catching Fire, also by Suzanne Collins, which is obviously the sequel to The Hunger Games. Well, maybe not obviously. I done a whole separate video for Elixir, just going over the entire plot. It was so crazy, it was so fun. I highly recommend you check out that video if you haven't. I'll link it down below. So I'm not really going to talk about that, but it was just a paranormal kind of like YA romance. It was very crazy. Just watch my video. It was fun. It was not well written, but it was a fun, like, interesting, exciting read. Not exciting, I don't know. It was fun anyway. And then The Hunger Games and Catching Fire were obviously rereads because the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is coming out next month, so I'm rereading the whole series and I really enjoyed rereading them. I'm going to do a whole video about the series once I finish Mockingjay, which I'm starting next Monday, so I'm not going to talk about them that much, but I really enjoyed rereading both of them. Catching Fire is still definitely my favourite, but both were really fun to reread. I forgot a lot of details, so just getting back into them and seeing like things I forgot was really exciting, and I also like rewatched the films, which was good as well. So definitely check out my video on the whole series, which will be coming out on the 6th or 7th of May probably. And yeah, absolutely love this series. Give them all 5 stars again. Agnes Gray was Anne Bronte's debut novel, which was released in 1847, and it follows Agnes, who is one of the most pure-hearted, kind characters I've ever read about, as she becomes a governess for 2 different families. So the first family she works for, the children are the absolute worst children of all time. They're the most worst behaved little brats ever. They're so horrible. They treat her horribly. The parents like don't care. One of the boys loves abusing animals, which was so hard to read about. It was really disgusting. And that whole section was just like so sad because Agnes is just one of like the kindest people ever and this family's just destroying her. But she leaves and she goes to work for a second family who are slightly better. I thought the 2 girls she looks after in this one were actually pretty funny. They're much older. So the first family, they're like kids, and then this one, like teenagers. And one of them is like the most stereotypical rich, spoiled girl who doesn't realise how like petty and nasty she's being because nobody's ever told her otherwise. And I actually thought it was pretty funny to read about. Anne wrote her like so perfectly. It was really good. So the book deals with a lot of themes of like toxic masculinity, as you would call it now. Obviously that term didn't exist back then, but it shows how women are treated back then, especially governesses. They're treated like scum basically by the families they work for, and it also shows just how like men back then behaved and like things. For example, the animal abuse. The young boy's only doing this because his father like encourages it and says it's like character building and stuff like this. Whereas it was like obviously horrible and disgusting. So those themes are kind of explored in this book. There's also a love story which goes on at the side that I'm not really going to talk about, but it was like kind of the typical classic 1800s love story that happens in all these classics. It was nice, but it wasn't very groundbreaking. I enjoyed this a lot, but I really enjoyed The Tent of Willfell Hall more. That's Anne's other book. I thought the themes and stuff explored in that are much more complex and mature than this one, but this was like a really fun, easy read. And if you're new to classics, I would really recommend this one. It was really easy to read. It was quite short. It was really like digestible, I guess you would call it, because the chapters are really short. So you get to the end of a chapter and you're like, oh, just read another chapter. It was one of those books. So I did really enjoy it and I would highly recommend it, but it was not my favourite out of Anne's two books. I actually haven't finished Carrie by Stephen King yet, but I'm probably going to finish it tonight or tomorrow, and I just want to talk about it anyway because I have got enough of the book to understand what's going on, and also I've seen both of the movies. So Carrie is by Stephen King, obviously, and it's about Carrie White, who is a young girl who has been bullied her entire life by all of her peers. She has no friends, and she's abused at home by her like ultra, super ridiculously religious mother. She has telekinesis, and after being humiliated at prom by some of her peers, she snaps and uses her abilities to kill everyone. So far, I haven't got to the actual prom scene, but I thought it was interesting that throughout the book, throughout the story, there's lots of different fictional reports and like book extracts and journal entries about the prom night by different people. For example, one of the girls that was there that survived, and like researchers who are interested in telekinesis, they're like writing reports on it and stuff. So you find out pretty much right from the start what is going to happen at the end. So it's very different in that sense, because obviously I thought everyone knows what Carrie's about anyway, because the final climax of the book and the movies is the main promotional message. So there's nothing to spoil. You know what the climax of the book is going to be before you start it, because that's why you're reading it for that climax. So it's very different from other books, because I feel like most books, although you kind of know like, okay, the hero's going to win at the end or whatever, you don't know how they're going to get there. But Carrie is very different, because you're like, okay, this girl has telekinesis and she's going to kill everyone at prom. And it's different. So I am enjoying it, but obviously it's like I know what's going to happen. And I've seen the two movies as well. But definitely a different read, but still interesting. One thing I do have to say is there's no chapters, which is really annoying, because it ends, like there's obviously specific parts where there should be like a chapter break, and it's very, very obvious, but there isn't chapter breaks. So that's just one little thing I don't like about it, but overall I am enjoying it and I'm probably going to finish it tonight. And those were all the books that I read for the It Will's Magical Readathon and just for the rest of April as well. I didn't say which prompt was for which book, because honestly I don't remember. I know that The Hunger Games was for a book with a beak on the cover, and Monday Begins on Saturday was for a book that starts with M, but I can't honestly remember. But I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, let me know if you've read any of these books, and if you haven't read any of these books, tell me if you are interested in any of them based on what I've told you. I'm assuming everyone's read The Hunger Games, but like I said, I'm releasing a whole video about the series in a couple weeks time, or 1 week's time, I don't know, once I finish Mockingjay, just before the new book comes out, which I'm super excited for. So thank you so much for watching. Again, like, subscribe, blah 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 blah, and I will see you in my next video.